Thank you so much. Before we continue now, the last stretch of this extraordinary conference, I really want to congratulate Valentin Preda, our host, for this event, having such a holistic view on security and prosperity. And I will try to do my piece on this in relation to sustainability and environmental issues. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this topic. So, as a background picture, I'd like to just share the information that Sweden aims to become the first fossil-free welfare state. And this goal was set already in 2017 by a broad parliamentary agreement. And that means that Sweden must reach zero net carbon emissions by 2045 and go negative beyond that. But what I'd like to do, having said this, is to perhaps highlight the points that have been and continue to be crucial for Sweden to achieve a sustainable business and a sustainable society. And the first one is cooperation between the government and the private sector. And the second point is to have a shift in mentality, a broad shift in mentality for everyone involved to have more of a circular economy. And I'd like to underline here today that green transition can be achieved whilst maintaining economic growth and prosperity. And Sweden would be a case in point. Between 1990 and 2017, in fact, the Swedish GDP growth was about 71%, whilst emissions fell by 26%. So it is possible to combine the two. And I'd also like to underline that it's really the industry, the private sector, that is driving the transition. I'd like to mention one example, just to illustrate a little bit. It's the Fossil-Free Sweden initiative, which combines about 450 Swedish companies and actors that have pledged their own journey towards a sustainable society. And within this collaboration, there's about 22 different industry sectors that each have prepared their own roadmap to a sustainable society. And this goes everything from the transport sector to medical, all over. So the industry is driving the transition. And why do I mention this? Why is this important? Well, it's because the industry sector itself have studied the market and understood that in the near market, this is where the opportunity lies, in the green opportunities. And the other factor is that this is what their current customers also demand. And many of these companies that are part of this initiative are companies that are multinationals. They're on the global market, but many of them are also active here in Romania. So let me just do a little bit of that name dropping. So there's, of course, there's Volvo, ABB, there's IKEA, there's Autoliv, there's Ericsson, there's Skanska, there's SKF, there's Scania, just to mention a few. And these companies are building on their own experience, clearly, because they want to be part of the global transition for their own competitiveness, but they also want to be part of Romania's transition to a more sustainable society. And I want to mention one more case of inspiration. It is the fossil-free steelmaking. And for your interest, perhaps, steelmaking is the most traditional business industry sector in Sweden. It is the industry that built the economic welfare and prosperity of the country that we still have today. And we've had actually three of these traditional companies, one state-owned and two private companies, coming together in a joint initiative to produce fossil-free steel. And I don't know if anyone knows how you make steel. I'd make it really simple. So basically, you take the iron ore out of the ground, you dig it up, and you need to heat it in order to extract the steel. And this heating process, which is the most important one, has traditionally been made by coal. So you can imagine the emissions coming from that. And the idea now with the fossil-free steel is to use hydrogen instead of coal, and you will have fossil-free steel. So this process is called hybrid, and this first pilot hybrid factory was actually built in the north of Sweden in a city called Luleå in 2020, and the first fossil-free steel was actually produced and used only a month ago. And this fossil-free steel, if and when it will become commercialized in Sweden, it will help reduce the emissions from my country with 10%. If it goes global, it can reduce the global emissions with about 6%. That is still a huge number. And this is a traditional industry that is being transformed. So who will use this fossil-free steel? Here I want to emphasize the circularity of it. For instance, there's a deal between Volvo Group, Volvo producing the cars and the trucks. They are buying this fossil-free steel because they need it for their own fossil-free production of vehicles. So there's the circularity in that. So what would be Romania's advantages here in the transition? I think we will hear more about that from other panelists here, but I still want to touch upon that because it's relevant. Within the energy field, I think Romania has huge opportunities. Solar, wind, waves. Romania also, I want to emphasize, has a great tradition in making train engines. And this has been discovered by a Swedish cargo company called Green Cargo, who's actually buying their most stable train engines from Craiova, which is the traditional place for train engines in Romania. And using trains, why is this important? Well, using trains is actually the most sustainable means of transportation. I believe one train set would equal about 20 trucks of goods. And obviously, Romania also has a hugely important geographical location for trade, reaching Eastern Europe, Turkey, Middle East, Northern Africa. This is also something that Swedish companies is discovering. Black Sea, we've heard it already, has a huge potential for the shipping trade. And the port of Constanza, the case has already been made. I don't need to say anything more about that. But this trade and distribution point is picked up by the Swedish companies increasingly. They look at Romania for the nearshoring and for the trade. And here I'd like to mention the logistics and distribution arm of IKEA, which is now setting up a huge distribution center outside of Bucharest that will service Southeast Europe and the Middle East. But ultimately, I think what needs to be kept in mind, of course, is that successful and sustainable logistics will take a combination of different types of sustainable transport. So moving forward in a country like Romania, this combination of sustainable means of transportation, logistics needs to be kept in mind. And Schengen entry will, of course, make a huge difference for Romania. So let me just finish off by mentioning a few things what Swedish companies can offer in Romania. And I think the principled issue here is that all Swedish companies that are active in Romania, they already abide by a very strict environmental and sustainable policy. They abide by policies on circular economy. They abide by energy efficiency policies. And this is something that they will obviously bring and are already implementing as they function in Romania. But the Swedish truck company Volvo, for instance, they will bring electric trucks. They are obliged to bring the electric trucks to Romania. We need more of those charging stations. Actually, there's another Swedish company, ABB, that is providing chargers for public transportation. It's done so to several municipalities already in Romania. Scania will be offering also fuel cell trucks, LNG gas trucks in Romania. Ericsson, the telecom company, will be able to provide the infrastructure needed for completion of the 5G network in Romania. So those are just some examples. But moving forward, perhaps, and this is the last thing I will say, it will be absolutely crucial to promote research, innovation, and technological development in all of these areas. And I'd say again, here in Romania, there's plenty of good universities, there's plenty of good people with good digital and technological skills should make use of that opportunity. And looking at Sweden, there are plenty of good examples that I would encourage everyone to look at. The Fossil Free Sweden website offers basically a set of examples of a test bed, basically, where you can see examples of what can be done. And also there's a bunch of science parks in Sweden that are very interested in collaboration also here with partners in Romania. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. Thank you.